This is Maginoni, and welcome to another edition of The Good and the Bad and the Disappointing. This actually was really tough because there wasn't a lot of really bad or really disappointing books, but let's see what we came up with this week. My Good. Now, this is arguably a contender because I do think there were other strong books, but this is the book that made me just salivate what's to come in the future. And that is New Avengers number 24. Now, here's the deal. What we have here is Submariner crawling to Doctor Doom for help because he realized he unleashed a pack of monsters to wreak havoc. You have the Cabal, who are completely out of control. They relish the hunt, they relish killing and destroying, and it goes beyond just, let's kill everybody on the planet to destroy the world, to blow it up, to save the Earth. No, I mean, they're going and doing some mind games or torturing, especially what they do to Professor X on a different planet. An alternate universe. So it goes beyond that. On top of that, you have some movement going on with Wakanda. And it appears... Oh, before I even go to Wakanda, I completely forgot about this. There's the part here where... Professor Xavier sends his X-Men to go stop the Cabal, and then they're taunting Xavier like, "Where's your X-Men? Where's your champions?" And then you have Terex basically with the skulls of two of them, and then he's basically talking through the skulls, and that's what I'm telling you. It's like they've really stepped some boundary here. This is some uncharted territory for some of these characters, and it's like insane what's going on with them. Now, anyways, going with Wakanda, basically what's going on here is the Earth basically turned their back on this country. They basically said, the secret's out. They know that there's incursions. The world leaders are letting the Cabal go crazy, and they know that the Cabal have the antimatter bombs in Wakanda. So they let Wakanda just basically go to hell. And so we have his Black Panther, the two Black Panthers, strike force coming in to try to rescue or capture the bombs. That part of the story was awesome. And finally, what we have is what Doctor Doom is working on. Now, Doctor Doom's not stupid. He knows that the incursions are happening, and he's kind of like this arrogant person where it's kind of like, well, since nobody bothered to come to me for help, I will solve this problem myself. And he's actually enlisted the aid of two very capable people. One person, it was kind of expected. The second one, completely out of left field. This part of the story is what I'm calling a potential game changer to everything. So this is what really set me into the direction of going, this story was awesome. The problem with this whole storyline so far is there's been moments of inactivity or repetitiveness, and this really just pushes everything forward, and it's off to a fantastic direction. Because if you really think about it, it's really putting the Cabal to a point where how are the heroes going to stop them when they relish killing so much? And like I said, this cover is just fantastic. So this is my good. Alright, this is my bad. Harlequin, number 1. Now, this is where I think there's going to be some disagreements with a lot of people. If you really think about what's going on in DC Universe, like Batman has specific roles, Aquaman has specific roles, Superman, etc. Suicide Squad, all that stuff. They have their own very unique storylines that tie into the main plot lines and that shape the overall universe. Harlequin, though, it's what I'm going to call a nonsense throwaway book. She's in her own little world, she does her own little stupid things, and whatever she does doesn't really matter towards the big picture. That's not to say that that's anything wrong. Marvel has books like that, DC has books like that, and sometimes it is a refreshing change to have a book where it's different than everything else. I'm always a champion of something different. So Harlequin does have its own place. Now, the Future's End storyline is the same thing. It's a nonsense book that doesn't really matter. And so they're following the game plan. But the reason why I'm really calling this my bad book is this. If I look at every other book that I've read this week, this is the one book that if I had a choice, like somebody came to me and said, put one book back on the shelf, you have to. This is the book I would just put back on the shelf. It's basically a story of Harley Quinn. She's stranded on an island. She does this, she makes these friends with inanimate objects. She eventually finds a tribe, and then there's the Joker. They get married. There's going to be sacrifices to a volcano type thing, and it repeats the process. And then Aquaman picks her up and saves her. So it's in a sense, like I mentioned, it's a no nonsense book. It's a nice little story between Harley Quinn and on her wild and crazy adventures. There's some nice artwork. But it really doesn't matter. I mean, like, this is one of those books that if DC really had to trim a little bit, they didn't need to slap on a Future's End on it. This didn't have to be made. And that's why this is my bad book. My disappointment book. It's actually two. Now, it's Booster Gold and Superman Doomed. Now, here's the deal. These books aren't necessarily bad. They're not a disappointment either. My disappointment is coming straight to DC's marketing. See, here's what's important here. In Booster Gold, one of the major villains who is basically tampering with the different dimensions, the different worlds, looking for the vanishing point, it's being addressed at the end of the story. Same thing with Doomed. It actually, if you read between the lines, you know who I'm just going to call it one of the main villains is for this World's End thing. Now, the reason why I'm saying one is because we don't really know for sure what is responsible, how many people are responsible, but it pretty much gives you a very strong clue as to what's going on. Nowhere do you see this on the cover. To illustrate my point, Marvel, in 8 months, time runs out. So guess what? You start paying attention because, next month it's 7 months, 6 months, and countdown. Let's look at this book, Magneto. March to Axis. This book, if you want to know what's going on in Axis, you have to buy this book because it compels you to figure out, where to find this money to buy it so this way you can get an inside scoop as to the storyline. It's criminal that DC did not slap all over Road to, map of, doorway to, running towards, traveling in this direction towards World's End, major big event. In this book and in that book. Look at it this way. Nobody knows that this is what's going on. That means stores aren't ordering appropriate levels of the copies. When people finally figure this out, that, hey, this is crucial to the story, and they run out to buy it, stores aren't going to have sufficient stock, shortages, now you're going to have to wait for second printings, and now people are going to lose interest. That's the problem. That is why I said this is the biggest disappointment, because these two issues could have been fantastic springboards for what's to come, and they couldn't care less. Let's put it this way. You can argue this is a Future's End tie-in. It says so right on the cover. Why isn't that enough? No, it's not. It's Booster Gold. There's nothing wrong with Booster Gold, but Booster Gold can't even hold his own series right now. So why would an average DC reader think this is important? Why would a brand new DC reader to the New 52 think this book is important to buy? They don't. That's the crime. So let's take a look at what these books are and why they're important. This Booster Gold book is actually really interesting. It's not going to appeal to everybody. It's kind of a fan service-y type book because what we have is Booster Gold traveling through different time periods. There's Gotham by Gaslight. There's actually a point where he goes to the Charlton Heroes line. He goes to the what's his name, Kamadi or whatever, the last Earth Boy or something like that. And the art style changes every single time he jumps. I think all that part was great. They were very careful at what they selected. They made it very obvious that this is what was going on, and I love the change in art styles. I really enjoyed reading everything up to this point. Now, I don't really want to spoil too much for those people who haven't read this yet, but all I will say is eventually what happens is there's two different Booster Golds, one a younger version and an older version that come from a different universes. They eventually both get caught, and there is somebody who's asking for the vanishing point. Where is it? And one is basically adamant, I will not give it out, and another one is going to be coerced into giving it. And I think if you really pay attention to what's going on, there are clues as to who that person is. Superman Doomed. Now, I have been up and down on Doomed. Mostly down on this book because I think a lot of this Doom storyline is missed opportunities and nonsense. And I will admit that this ending, they tied everything up and they did some nice explaining, and it was actually ending pretty well. You have Brainiac, or what's his name, Vostrel or whatever his name is. And that name change is important also, in that you have this guy, he's trying to basically collect the minds of most of the universe, and if he can get that, then he can harness their power to change the universe to make it better, which was a Sandman comic storyline where the cats were the dominant species and humans all wished that at the same time that they were the dominant species, and poof, we have now cats as pets. So it's kind of following that storyline, and I wouldn't be surprised if somebody points out that that's a recycled story on top of that, because it's not that original. But anyways, all of this part's great. The art's pretty decent. You have Supergirl fighting. There's some I won't spoil it, but there's some secrets about who Cyborg Superman is. You have a pretty decent interaction between Clark and the evil Brainiac of New 52. So, and all that part was great, because there's times where it looks like Clark might have been almost willing to cave in, to say, hey, you know what, you're right, we can make this a better universe, but he just doesn't. He's like, I can't do this because your version of the correct universe is not necessarily the right one. This universe is fine. There's also his motivation as to why he's doing what he's doing. So, what's his name? Yeah, Pac did it. Pac tied it up really well, and I was really impressed with the way this is ending. The key is the end, the last couple pages, where the bad guy's defeated, and there's dialogue that appears. Now, it has been speculated as to who is actually talking based on the format of the way the dialogue is being presented in the book. The last page is also critical because it's really showing you what that multiversity and the world's end and all that future's end, all that stuff is how that's starting to come together. And I think, like I said, I think they did a great job in tying all of that. This is the start. But unfortunately, nobody knows about it. And that's what's my disappointment. And because, I don't care if this is book 29 of, 29. And you got to tell everybody, this is what's going on. This is basically your Easter eggs. And it should have been told. So anyways, these are actually not too bad of a reads. I think with Booster Gold, majority of the people, though, I don't think they're going to appreciate it as much, especially if you're not familiar with Booster Gold as a character. If you do like Booster Gold, there's not enough of his character so to speak, that people like his characterization. But I like the time travel in this book. And this book in general, I think, if you've been reading Doomed, I think most of you will be pleased with the way it ended. But anyways, that is my good and the bad and disappointing. I would like to hear what did you guys think was your good, your bad, and your disappointing? Because like I said, this week was actually kind of difficult because there were some really decent books out there. And I know I left a lot of stuff on the table this week. Anyways, I'll have more reviews later. Like and share. Facebook and Crunchyroll anime reviews over there. And I'll have more reviews and stuff later. So until next time.